That's about, yeah, that's about that.
No, it's okay.
Oh, but that's not the plan.
A lot hotter. Not just us.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Sweetwater City Council to order. I'm going to ask Daniel Norton with Lamar Street Baptist Church to give him the invocation this morning, and Councilman Baker to do the pledges.
Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for this morning. We thank you for the opportunity to gather. We thank you for your wisdom and your mercy, and we pray that you will be present in all these meetings. Fill us with wisdom, be a part of our planning, and guide us in everything that we do. We pray all these things in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Morning, everyone. Okay, we'd like to welcome the Sweetwater Leadership class here today, and hope y'all enjoy your day today, seeing the city and the county stuff. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to item 4, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of minutes for meeting held on October the 12th, 2021.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, item 5 is for public input. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak? Okay. We'll now move to item 6, which is to hear from Ms. Sharon Hicks regarding redistricting process update, reviewing the existing precincts, map, and update census data, and provide direction.
Good morning, Mayor and Council, Administration. You want me to operate that? I'll try.
I can do it if you'd rather.
I'd probably,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
No problem.
We're here today to talk to you about your municipal redistricting and reapportionment update. I'm pleased to tell you that you currently are in pretty good shape. We do have a little bit of work to do, but not too much. Next slide. This next slide shows your current map with your districts, and you can see that y'all from a geographic drawing are pretty well balanced. The reason that we do this is under the guise of one person, one vote, equal representation. And we're not talking about registered voters, we're talking about representation of your entire community. So you can see that you have pretty good geographic representation, because although District 3 extends out a little bit further, its population is fairly small. Now, for what you had before, next slide, please. Your 2010 census showed that you had 10,906 people. Your current census of 2020 showed 10,622. So you lost 284 population. That's not a large swing. That could be a decrease in the population, or it could just be that some people didn't answer the census. So you're holding steady at your total population. So what you do when you try to look at even proportionment, you obviously just do some math and you take your 10,622 and you divide it by your number of districts. And so you look at your ideal size of your districts is 2,656. When you look across the board, and we can go to the next slide, by District 1, you have 2,423. District 2 has 2,714. District 3, 2,773. And District 4, 2,712. So when we compare that to that 2,656, you can see that District 1 is short 233 people. You can see that District 2 is over by 58. District 3 is over by 117. And District 4 is over by 56. So when you look at those raw numbers and the deviation that's allowed under the law, you can see that y'all are in pretty good shape. If it were just a raw calculation, I think we'd be done and you wouldn't have anything to do. But what we have to do next is we have to look at, next slide, please. We have to look at the difference in the percentages relative to each district. So when you look at that District 1 is 233 below the ideal size, that establishes a negative 8.8 deviation for your District 1. Next slide, please. When you're 58 above the ideal size, your deviation is a positive 2.1%. Next slide, please. Now, this is your largest over. When you're 117 over, that shows you have a deviation of 4.4% for District 3. And then your last slide, next slide of District 4, you're back at a deviation of 2.1. So you can see that you go from a negative 8.8 on this side to a 4.1 on this side. That's where we look at the next category of what we have to address, and that is the spread between that negative 8.8 to the positive 4.1, and that is a deviation, next slide please, of 13.2. This calculating the deviation is basically just saying what is the spread between the largest number and the smallest number. It's not an average, if you will, it is literally calculating a spread. The law as it currently states says that you can only be 10% apart. And so when you look, next slide please, at your deviation of the 8.8 and the 4.4, your deviation is a 13.2. So that's the number that tells us that we have to modify your existing districts up or down a little bit. But once again, you are not in a disparate portion where some are 20, 30%, deviation. So y'all are in real good shape. Now, why do we have to do that? We have to make sure, as I said before, that it is, next slide please, one person, one vote, and it is to also not dilute minority representation. And that kind of involves two terms that we call packed and cracked. And packed is where you do not take all your concentration of your minority districts, minority population, and put them in one district to where they only have a limited vote across the whole population. Cracked is where you take them and put little packs in each district so where their votes are diluted so much they have no say. And once again, y'all do not have that, so we will look at also discretionary criteria. Next slide, please. Which is contiguousness and connectivity. If you remember your slide from before that had your maps in it, all of your map districts looked relatively equal. Once again, the one to the District 3, I believe, the pink was off to the left, but the population concentration was not so much that it causes us concern. And one thing you don't have that some districts do, excuse me, which necessitated some of these rules that we have, is you had districts that went like this, that were a horseshoe, or they were split up and were not contiguous. One section was over here and one section was over here. And so that's why you have the law requiring that you have this analysis every census time. So what do we do next? Well, as you can see, since David's operating the, next slide please, David's operating the machine, I'm not a computer buff, so, and nor am I a demographer. You have hired a demographer to work with our firm that we will actually do the calculations to bring that deviation down to that 10%. And what that will do is take a few of your more concentrated population boxes when you look at your existing map, and it will drop some or it will move some over. But like I said, with that 13.2 deviation to get you to 10 should not take much of a district alteration, if you will. And it's certainly, looking at where you currently have your districts and your residencies will not change, that we will not be recommending to you that we lose a current makeup of the city council. We have to have this done, though, within at least 3 months before your next election of May. So what we will do is we will work with a demographer. We will calculate 2 or 3 options for you that get you in that 10% deviation. We'll present those to staff for review. Because one thing the demographer does not know that we don't know is, some of the history of the city and where people have been and things like that. So we may make some minor adjustments. And then city staff, along with our firm, will present those findings to y'all. And the council will, by ordinance, pick a new map for the districts. And like I say, we will do that in the next month or two because we want to have it done well in advance for, obviously, your city attorney to look at it to make sure he's comfortable with it, your city manager, and then we will be presenting it to y'all for that review. I've gone over it very quickly. I think it's a very simple process for y'all. Y'all have done a great job with where you are. You've taken it very seriously of having equal representation across your districts. My partner at Denton Navarro, Dan Santee, normally does these. He had a conflict. I'm actually in the Coleman office of Denton Navarro, so it's really easy for me to come over to Sweetwater and meet with y'all. So you have my card and Dan's information on the back of your handout, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions, or I'll turn it back over if your city manager or city attorney has any comments.
What's the time frame for adopting the new district maps by ordinance? When do we have until to do
We
that?
haven't, if your election is in May, we have to have it done at least 3 months in advance, so April, March, February. I'd like to have it done by January because I'd like to have plenty of time for y'all to review it, because if we bring y'all a couple of options and you want to have us go back to the demographer, I'm then at their schedule. So I'd like to have it done January, February, first meeting at the latest.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item 7, which is to hear from Dr. Drew Howard, Sweetwater Superintendent, regarding experimental learning project.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you and share a little bit of what we've been working on in the school district, partnering with several partners across the community, with USG, Ludlum, SEED, the Chamber. I'm going to kind of introduce what we're working on and then hand it over to Dr. Duncombe, and then Jeff Grimlin will speak a little bit too, and they're the ones in the weeds doing all the work. But questions that when you think of experiential learning, a goal that we need to have is we need our students to be successful in the future, but we don't know what that future is going to look like. 2-3 years ago, we didn't think we would have experienced what we have in the last 2 to 3 years in the world. So how do we prepare our students to be successful in the future when we don't know what that's going to be like? And the biggest difference maker is experiences. You think of the demographics of Sweetwater ISD, we have a lot of students that don't have as many opportunities to go out and have real world life experiences that several of us have been able to experience in our lifetime. Think of, example I use a lot is, do you learn a skill better by reading about how to change a tire in a car, or actually going out and changing the tire on a car? You're going to learn better by that hands-on experiential learning. And how tight is that lug nut? You can't read about that. You've got to go out and actually have hands-on experiences with those learning. So what are we doing across the district to add experiential learning into our classrooms? We really have four areas that we're working in right now. One with our younger students, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. They may not be out changing the tire on a car, but think of the classroom. We've all been to Vacation Bible School before. When you walk into the sanctuary for Vacation Bible School, the sanctuary doesn't look like the normal sanctuary. It's transformed into whatever experience the kids are going to have that week. If you've ever been to museum school, you go and you have all these hands-on activities and you have different experiences. So we're working to transform our classrooms in pre-K kindergarten into, here's the ocean experience. Here's the construction zone experience. And students will rotate between classrooms. This is a 2 to 3 year project, but students rotate between classroom to classroom, and they actually get the next best thing than being at the ocean. Have a classroom where there's real sand and they can dig in the sand and they can see and have hands-on experiences to where they can bring in that real world context. The second thing, and what we're going to focus on today, is partnerships in our community. We have a lot of opportunities in Sweetwater that Sweetwater ISD has yet to take advantage of. We have great careers that our students can enter into and never leave Sweetwater, with USG, with Ludlums, and we can name more and more and more. But getting our manufacturing and our partners into our classrooms and getting our students out and touring and seeing the facilities and understanding what careers are available to them right here in Sweetwater. So that's the second part, and we'll highlight that here in a second. And then third, we've worked with the Big Country Manufacturing Alliance, thanks to Jeff Grimlin and Thomas Taylor, who've helped us create this partnership, to bring in an additional counselor at the high school that will actually follow our seniors into college and support our seniors that first year into college. So if college is the pathway to your career, we have some additional supports to make sure that our students are successful as they go through college. And then also with that grant, there's a rural school coordinator will serve Sweetwater and other school districts as well, that will help coordinate the tours and the availability of getting our students in and experiencing what it would be like to work at USG. What is that career pathway? Because college isn't always the best pathway for a career. So the mindset that we have in creating learning agility, creating that ability to be successful in the future with not knowing what that future is going to be like, is getting our students engaged and immersed in experiences so that they can choose the best career path for themselves. If that career path is college, if that career path is a trade school, if that career path is just going straight into the workforce, the greatest gift we have is our ability to choose. Our good Lord gives us that, the country we live in gives us that, and education gives us that as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Duncombe and share a little bit of the partnerships that have been created in our community and what we're really trying to do to immerse our kids in those experiential learning opportunities. Again, thank you all for letting us be here.
Well, good morning. I will piggyback on what Dr. Howard said. This is an amazing partnership that we've started to form here between the school district and manufacturers. I've honestly worked in several school districts, from very, very large to much smaller than we have here. But this is the first time I've ever seen a willingness of business partners, manufacturers to come in and support what we're doing, and also recognize the fact that the skills we're trying to teach our students with experiential learning in turn helps them. This is their future workforce. This is the future of residents that are going to be living here in Sweetwater, Texas. So it's a very powerful thing that we've been building. So you can see from the slide up here on the board, this partnership has several different people supporting it. from the Sweetwater Economic Development to the Chamber of Commerce, and then also our business partners as well as us in the school district. So it has been an amazing effort by all of these people working together that have gotten us to where we are today. Next slide, please. So we talked about experiential learning. What is it? It is in itself an experience, but what the student learns through that experience is a lot more than just content. As a school district, we're always interested in content. We have to cover the peaks that TEA and the state of Texas says these are the skills that have to be taught. And while they're important, they're not always the most important thing. The second thing on that list is soft skills. And we could argue, is it soft skills or is it really an essential skill? But this is the ability for students or any group of people to communicate together, to collaborate, to problem solve, and to overcome something collectively. That is a skill a lot of graduates today are lacking when they go and they enter into the workforce. These are some skills that employers are having to teach to their employees on a daily basis rather than this is how we do things in our business. Problem solving, already mentioned that one. A lot of our kiddos now, when they come up against a barrier, a lot of them will just quit. They won't try to overcome that barrier, and they're certainly not doing it in a collective manner. They just shut down or they quit for whatever reason. They've lacked that skill, that they had not learned it growing up. And lastly is just real world connections. When we're teaching in the classroom, there's a lot of concepts that are very abstract. And it can be abstract for a variety of reasons. If a child has never seen the ocean and we're talking about the vastness of the ocean or the feel of the sand beneath their toes, some of them, many of them, unfortunately, have never experienced that. But when we can build a real world connection, whether we're bringing that sand into the classroom or whether we're taking our students to Ludlam's or to USG, when we build those real world connections, that light bulb comes on for those kids. Now they're able to connect the concepts that the teachers have been talking about to this is how this is used in the real world. I can now understand why this is important, why we're having to learn this. Next slide, please. So I know I've touched on some of these, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but why is experiential learning important? Our local businesses, they need employees. They need employees that have soft skills. They need employees that are going to show up to work on time, that are going to be problem solvers and critical thinkers. Those are things that we in the school district can help support. The new content, this is from the school district's perspective. When we're introducing and teaching content, if we can build that real world connection and have a business partner come in and share that information with our students and support what our teachers are doing, our kids are going to pick it up that much faster. They'll be more engaged. Engagement goes up. We know through studies that student truancy and student discipline issues, they go down. Engaged students want to be in the classroom. They want to learn. This is also something that's very easy for us to embed into our existing curriculum. This isn't a program that we have to go out and buy. This isn't a program that we have to go out and train teachers on. It's simply a partnership of time. The businesses have invested in us, and we will in turn invest in them. We will send our teachers for those tours. Our teachers will take these concepts and embed them into their lessons. And then the last piece, I already spoke on that, but student engagement, that learner's engagement. It increases over time. I was one of those kids. If you couldn't tell me why I was having to learn something, I probably wasn't going to put as much effort into learning it as if I understood the why. Next slide, please, sir. So, what we're presenting and talking about today has been a long, long time in the making. I know it started well before Dr. Howard and I came to Sweetwater Independent School District. But it is what we're going to be able to show you is the culmination of many, many, many months of our work and probably years of work on the Economic Development Council and the Chamber and our local manufacturers. So first, how do we want to do this? We knew we had to put some planning into it. We didn't want it to be a one-off piece, not just one tour and done. We wanted it to be something that could grow and sustain over time. That was phase one. Phase two was actually implementing it. That's getting our teachers to to take kids out to the manufacturing facilities for tours. That's getting the manufacturers and their expertise to come into our classrooms for our early elementary learners. So we made some commitments up front to each other to get these pieces done. Next slide, please. So for planning, this is where we're currently at, and we're at the tail end of this right now. We're almost to the point where we're refining this. But we have taken all of our math and science teachers, grades 3 through 12, and they have gone out and experienced the tours and the amount of technology and educational connections they can build at USG and at Ludlam's. Those teachers then came back and they had a half of a day, a half work day to present out to each other. This is what we learned. This is what we saw. These are the connections we can make to our curriculum. And then at the end of that day, they scheduled on a calendar timeline, when can we go out and pull in the manufacturer's expertise into our classrooms or take tours. Next slide, please. So these are some pictures of the industry tours that we took back in October. So we've got groups of our science and math teachers out at both facilities, both USG and Ludlam's. Our teachers were able to get that hands-on experience that they can bring in for our students. And what was most exciting to me was watching the enthusiasm move through the crowd of teachers. I saw teachers go from hesitant and unsure to shocked that we offer this much diversity in terms of manufacturing right here in Sweetwater, to amazement at, I can bring these things into my classroom. We can teach kids how to use a micrometer. We can do all these different pieces with measurement and get our kids engaged. Because I promise you, when teachers get engaged and get excited, kids are going to get engaged and get excited right after that. Next slide, please. So after those tours, this was the kind of the teacher's turn to take what they had learned. They broke into small groups. They created a short presentation so everybody could hear what they saw. The most amazing thing about this day was USG and Ludlam's had their employees at this event. There was one employee member for each group of teachers working. And to hear those conversations back and forth. And the excitement was both sides. It wasn't just the teachers, it was also the employees from USG and Ludlam's, to know that their information was going to get pushed back out to these kiddos. Next slide, please. So here's where we're at now. We're working on implementation. Teachers have given us a rough timeline. We've shared that with our manufacturers. So we're all working together to ensure that this partnership continues moving forward. But our teachers are going to take those topics that they learned and they're going to be able to integrate them into their lessons. Simple things. For example, a lot of what we heard was at the manufacturing side, we get employees that don't know how to read a tape measure. That's something that we can incorporate. If we're teaching math and we're teaching fractions, rather than using abstract blocks to show quarters and halves and fifths and eighths, we can use the tape measure to do that. USG and Ludlam's can come into our elementary classrooms and they can show kiddos what is a micrometer. How do we measure that piece of drywall and make sure that it's within spec for our customers? And why is measurement so important? Additionally, this year we added an OSHA certification training course. We have 137 seniors who are going through that course right now. So when they're finished, they will have the opportunity to take a certification test. And upon passing that test, they will be certified as having passed that OSHA test. That's one less barrier that they would need to get over to start employment in a large manufacturing facility. They have been trained in the basic safety information. This is also an area that USG is going to help supporting our teachers in. Some of our kiddos don't know what a lockout tagout system is for an electrical box. We can show them that stuff through some of the partnerships we have here with USG today. And then lastly, we've got this support for the experiential learning rooms that Dr. Howard mentioned for the little students. Next slide, please. So moving forward, we talked about this being a partnership. We want it to be continuous. We want it to grow. We want it to develop. We've got 2 business partners on board with us right now, and we are excited for that. But where else can we go? We would love to expand into healthcare and offer that as a pathway for our students as well. But our commitment to this partnership is to continue to work with and send our teachers out there, to continue to provide professional development, days for them to work and integrate that into their lessons. And our business partners are committed as well. They're committing to opening their facilities up for tours. They're committing to having their employees come into the schools for the elementary classrooms and make these presentations. So like I said, it's a very brief presentation, but it is a phenomenal partnership, one I have never seen in any district that I've ever worked in the past. So we're very excited to be a part of it, and we thank y'all for the opportunity to come and share with you today just some of the great things we have going on in the school district. So it's a great place to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. I know most of you in the room, I guess, but I'm Jeff Grumman. I'm the plant manager at USG. Excuse me. I've been with the company about 24 years. I grew up in a small town in the Panhandle, small town farm repair welding shop. So this hands-on learning is very important to me. I put myself through college working in welding shops. So I think this partnership is a beautiful thing. First thing I want to talk about is Big Country Manufacturing Alliance. This is a 19-county region of manufacturers coming together to help develop the future workforce. We don't want to rob employees from one another. We want to make the pool of employees larger. These are good paying jobs, jobs that you can develop a career, jobs with a pension, jobs with a 401k, jobs with good benefits, jobs that pay well. And we love your students when we get them as adults. We want to help your community, and it helps us in the long run. So this Big Country Manufacturing Alliance is a big deal. Ken Becker or Drew Howard, somebody will email this group later a link to the BCMA. There's a couple of videos I'd like you to watch. One is just about, it's titled Manufacturing in the Big Country, and the other is Women in Manufacturing. And please take the time to watch both of those, because this is really what it's all about. I was part of that group of one of those generations that was convinced you had to go to college to be successful. Now, I have an engineering degree. I'm very proud of that. But if I had not gone to college, I would be running a part of Ludlam's plant in regards to manufacturing, or I would be out at your group running your maintenance team, and I would have had a very successful career. So the key with BCMA is there's a job for everyone. That's what we want you to understand. And I'm here representing USG, but I'm really representing all of manufacturing. Regardless of level of education, there is a job. And I give you an example. We're teamed up with TSTC, working with the state to get training. Both of our facilities are getting training, state grants and so on. That relationship with TSTC has led to a partnership with TSTC. 3 of my newest electricians have an 18-month degree program, and they're replacing people that are retiring as we stand. And it's really exciting that this work and partnership, it's paying off for us. To the experience learning events. When somebody doesn't know how a tape measure works, or how to use a micrometer, or what a confined space really is, what a lockout tagout procedure really is, when that starts to happen right here, that work is right in front of us, those folks that have no experience with it, what do? They cross their arms and they back up a half a step, and they watch everybody else do the work. I guarantee you this activity, these activities that we're just now getting started in, are going to teach your students to step into the work and be a part of the work, which will lead to promotions for them, possibly leadership, supervisor, foreman, and so on. So I'm really excited about it. You know, you've got to crawl before you can walk. You've got to walk before you can run. We're far enough along that we're starting to walk. The next time we're in front of you in 6 months or a year, I think we'll be running. I think it'll be full bore. And so that's really my message, and I appreciate your time today, and I think we can make some beautiful things happen with your school, with your students, and it will only help the community and USG and Bootsy and all the other manufacturers in the area. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, we'll now move to item 8A, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of a 20-foot utility easement required by Taylor Electric to be located on the City of Sweetwater-owned municipal golf course. Any questions of Dana or Taylor Electric?
These lines overhead or buried?
Barry.
I move approval of the easement.
I'll second. Second that.
All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just here for, if you had any questions, I was gonna answer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now move to item 8B, which is discuss, consider, and act upon 2 appointments and 2 reappointments to the Planning and Zoning Commission Board for 2-year terms. Any questions of Dana?
Make a motion to appoint members.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried and approved. Now move to item 8C, which is discuss, consider, and act upon 2 appointments and 2 reappointments to the Board of Adjustments for a 2-year term.
We make these appointments, reappointing Terry Bennett as a regular member, Keith Brock as a regular member, Bill Cherry as a regular member, Scott Morgan as an alternative member to the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried and approved. Now move to item 8D, which is discuss, consider, and act upon an ordinance amending Chapter 19, Article 9, junked and abandoned vehicles. Okay.
Mayor and Council, this request is to completely take Chapter 19 out of what we currently have in our Code of Ordinances and insert this new language. There's a couple things that I wanted to point out. This is compliant with state law, where we want to make sure that what we're doing, providing good due process to those that we send notifications to, and we're following every letter of the law as it relates to state law. This improves on our definitions of what we consider to be a junk vehicle. It also improves upon our notifications, whereas we notify the property owner if we see an abandoned or junk vehicle, but we also now are required to run the VIN and plates to identify if there's any lien holders to that vehicle. So we're adding a little bit more review on this. One more change is, and it's streamlining it somewhat. Typically, if we send a notification out, there's an appeal where they can request a hearing before a municipal judge. We've added a layer in here to where the first hearing would be through a administrative hearing. It would be a staff person, as the city manager would designate. That's the first point of hearing. So if there is no hearing that asked for, we can abate the vehicle as a city. This hearing would then discuss the reasoning why we think it is an abandoned vehicle or junk vehicle, and we could abate it at that point in time if there's no appeal for that person, because they can still appeal it to the municipal judge past the hearing officer. All this does is it provides a little bit more hands-on for the staff to look at these junk vehicles, and it will improve the time associated with removing junk vehicles, in my opinion. And it also, again, provides a little bit more due process to make sure we're doing everything the way that we're supposed to be doing. I'm confident that with this ordinance, there will not be any questions about our city code related to junk and abandoned vehicles. So it brings us right up to current state law standards.
How quick's the process from beginning to end when you identify or get a complaint or whatever's going on?
So if it's a junk vehicle on private property, there's a 30-day notification. They get 30 days, and we'd send that out. They can request a hearing within the first 10 days before a hearing officer, and we can review it earlier. If it's a vehicle on public property, it's a 3-day notification. It gives us a little bit more right to remove a vehicle if we need to, if it's in the public right of way. But private, it's about a 30-day deal. Add maybe another 10 days onto that. Could be 45 days or so. Could be, or it could be shorter.
Any other questions?
The material provided says that the hearing officer is designated by the city council, but within the ordinance it says that the city manager makes that designation.
Yeah, and so I do want to make a point that there is 2 locations. I have it marked right here. I want to change that first one under section 19251, that it would be the city manager making that designation for the hearing officer. Then it's consistent throughout. Thank you for bringing that up.
Move adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Who's second?
Tom.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried and approved. An ordinance of the City of Sweetwater amending Chapter 19 Motor Vehicles and Traffic by adopting a comprehensive revision of Article 9 Junk and Abandoned Vehicles as provided for in Exhibit A, making various findings and provisions related to the subject of junk vehicles, providing for a repealer clause, providing for servability, and providing for an effective date. Okay, we'll now move to item 8E, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of a resolution amending the personal policy manual regarding attendance and work hours. Any questions, Lisa?
Make a motion, we adopt the resolution, which amends the personnel policy manual regarding attendance and work hours. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried and approved. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sweetwater, Texas, authorizing and approving amendments to the employee policy manual for attendance and work hours, established an effective date. Now move to item 8F, which is discuss and consider to act upon amending the central rate schedule. Any questions? That's all on commercial refuge.
I'll make a motion, we act upon amending the central rate schedule.
I'm on second.
All,
With the question, does this address just regular commercial, or is there anything special on this?
I think it's just regular commercial. These are not billed by the city of Sweetwater. They're billed directly from Republic, and it's just,
And why do we even address it within our central rate schedule?
because they're a franchisee, and if somebody's looking up how much am I going to get charged for, they're going to go to the city of Sweetwater first and try to find out what their rates are going to be.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
okay, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried and approved. Now move to item 8G, which is discuss, consider, and act upon voting for nominees for the Nolan County Appraisal District Board of Directors. We all agreed on Kenny Buckers, or did we just?
Make a motion, we approve.
Well, we need to,
Yeah, we've got to address who we're going to give them to.
our options are to apportion them out to the 4 individuals, or if we could give them all to one. I would move we award all our votes to Kenny Becker.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried and approved. City manager's report.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have a slide up there on the work of service that was provided by First Financial Bank at our SNAP location. And what happened, how this came about was every year on Columbus Day, First Financial, instead of taking the day off, the employees gather together and work on a community project to improve the look of our community. What they landed on this year, if you can move that forward, Zach, I'd appreciate it. What they landed on this year was the shed out at SNAP, and you can see the before and after pictures of the work that was done. They painted the shed and I believe repaired a ramp or something like that.
Yes.
as
The
well.
Step up's real high, so there was a ramp and it was all busted up.
Yes.
They replaced the boards and painted it and everything.
Yes, and they did a fantastic job. I think this is a great show of support for the city and the community by First Financial, and really want to take this opportunity publicly to thank them and their employees for all the work that they do on their day of service.
And can I also add that in addition to all those people you see in that picture on the right, they had enough people to deliver 8 of our 9 routes here in Sweetwater, the meals that day.
Yes.
So I was able to give all of my volunteers that day off. So it was
Yes.
awesome. It was very
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you for that. And then the second item was fire department retirements. We've had recent retirements of Billy Villanueva and Todd Dunham. We'd like to thank them for their service to the Sweetwater Fire Department and the community. And Jeff Schoenfeld retires on September 17th, so we want to do the same for Jeff and his family. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thanks, sir. And item 10 is adjournment. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
How about a second?
Second.